Anastasia Stacy Presh, a board-certified nurse coach, writer, and wellness entrepreneur who has turned her own journey through burnout and reinvention into a mission to help others thrive beyond the bedside. As co-founder of Well and Whole, Stacy empowers both individuals and healthcare organizations to prioritize holistic wellness, personal growth, and self-worth, guiding nurses and through career pivots, stress recovery, and life transitions. In our conversation, Stacy opens up about what it really takes to move from clinical practice to entrepreneurship, why coaching is a necessity, not a luxury, and how learning new languages fuels deep personal transformation. She shares honest stories about combating burnout, the powerful role of mentorship, and the cultural shifts needed to embrace true work-life balance. This episode is filled with practical wisdom about investing in oneself, overcoming limiting beliefs, and embracing self-awareness as the foundation for meaningful change. Whether you're a nurse, a healthcare leader, or anyone seeking purpose and renewal, Stacy's story is a roadmap for growing at work and in life.
Hello, how are you, Stacy?
Great, how are you?
Not bad. You are the busy nurse, keep traveling around the world with your husband, the pilot. However, I know you are busy every time, but I had a very smooth experience with you in order to arrange for this. Usually I had a couple of meetings and preparing with my guests, but for you it was seamless. So thank you for thank you for coming for us today. It is my pleasure. Stacy, tell us who you are.
Okay, who am I? Okay, many ways to explain this, but I am a board certified nurse coach and co-founder of Well and Whole, which is a business that I run with my twin sister. Who's not here today. It's just me. So if I say we a lot, just full disclosure, I'm probably talking about her. But yeah, and in our business, we're really focused on helping people, especially nurses at different stages of their careers, to live what we call a well and whole life. And one of the things that we found to be so transformational in doing that is coaching, which is why we love to share that. And we've really made that like the foundation of what we're doing. But yeah, at heart, besides just me as a nurse and entrepreneur and coach, I love to travel. I love wellness and like kind of all things well-being. I'm learning French. I'm an expat. So those are just in Paris. So those are some other things about me.
Yeah, now you are living as an American in Paris, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I know they more conservative and they like just to speak in French. And this is the first time I know you don't speak English very well. So this is something restrict you to move around the city, or this is something?
So here's the thing about this. Like, actually, the truth is it doesn't restrict me much at all in my day-to-day life because my husband speaks great English. I work in English and lots of people in Paris speak English.
French already, right?
He's French. Yeah. But, obviously it's important to learn the language where you live. And in order to connect with lots of people, that will be necessary. So I think that I could answer this question a number of ways. Definitely wanting to connect deeper with, with people here, with my family, with friends that speak French as their first language, especially. So I'm taking lessons, but it is one of the things that has just, I feel like I have as many lessons in personal growth and development from starting to learn a new language in my 30s as any other experience. And so, yeah, it's sort of, they say that when we are growing and healing, it's like a staircase, you go up and you kind of see the same view again and again. And you think, didn't I already learn this lesson? And the answer is maybe yes, but now you're seeing the same lesson from a different perspective. So I'm definitely finding that to be the case, with learning French.
In the past or during my school, I learned French. They taught me French, but because I don't practice it, I forget everything. So comparing English and French, especially from grammatical point of view, it's harder than English. It's not an easy. What we used to know, this is how it's work in English, totally different how it's in the French.
Yeah.
And you remind me with my teacher, her name Rinad. I like her a lot. at that time, and I know she will be very disappointed for what I'm saying. I forget everything she taught me. Sorry, Renan. Okay, so I never told you that, but during my connecting with you, we been a while together, and I came across your LinkedIn, your company profile, your website, and I saw your sister picture. It is not like you, however, you are twins. It seems not identical twins, but the quality, the taste of your website, the theme, the design, I like it. It's reflect. It's reflect. You are living in Paris, where is the elegant there, so you reflect that thing. They like it. Most probably, with all respect for our nurses, they do a lot of the work, but they don't see the general taste, it's work or not, from user interface and user experience. Those all of the things they don't consider. But I believe you did very well in your website.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, side note, because I was not necessarily expecting to talk about this, but I love that you brought this out because I think that maybe we will talk about it. But yes, like the transition from nursing into entrepreneurship and all the pieces and parts of business, like sometimes, you know, when you're in the stage where you are wearing all the hats, it can be difficult. And there's a lot of people that give advice like, oh, you know, it doesn't really matter what it looks like, take messy action. Like, and that's okay to a point, but there is also like, in my opinion, you need to be happy with the online presence that you are presenting because there are so many people that you're going to meet online that's the only way you're going to meet them. And so, you know, I think there's this sort of duality between like knowing, you know, being confident in what you provide and what you're doing. And like, it doesn't have to look perfect, but I am definitely on the side of the, you know, I'm definitely on team like polish your presence because I think it's just so important not only to like really put your best foot forward, but also I've heard from so many people that are like, I have this website but I don't like it, and it's like, well, if you don't even like it, then what do you think other people are going to think? So yeah.
Absolutely, it is well polished, your website.
Thank you.
Because also for me, I came from a business perspective, working in different role in health tech. So you need to put your shoe in customer side. If you don't like it, how the customer will like it? So this is the point, and you bring it on the table. Thank you for that. So
sure.
I'm very excited to start with your journeys. What led you to establish this unique blend of skills? Speaking of your entrepreneur or nursepreneur, this is a new concept that comes to the board. So what led you to establish this kind of skills?
Yeah. So, you know, like with my nursing journey, it actually started out in the operating room, and I was a surgical tech before going into nursing. So already right there, it's a little bit different than maybe the journey of most where they knew that they wanted to do this, right? So it ended up being something that I sort of fell into, but happily, and I was in the operating room for a decade. One of the things that I sort of processed this later, right, was that, you know, as with the OR, we have a connection with patients, but we're really taking care of a team, navigating team dynamics. And also where I worked, and a huge part of my work was mentoring and precepting. So something that I realized along the way was that I was actually doing this thing called coaching without realizing what it was. And really like, you know, I had this sense, but without like the continued education to know, like, I loved helping people see their potential. I loved seeing them start from one end and really like come full circle and grow. I loved being that person that supported them and helped them do things, you know, and get to a level of mastery that they didn't know that they were going to be able to, helping them increase their confidence, helping them learn to advocate for themselves, because those are just all skills that we use in nursing, and then sharing that with people, but having like, you know, a real sense of being able to do that. And I think that some people love it. I think you can be taught to do it, but I think there's also just something that like is inside of you that's maybe kind of a requirement if you go this direction. But yeah, through COVID, through burnout, I think, you know, I navigated probably a couple burnouts, but as is also common. Yeah.
There is, I allocate apart from burnout, I believe every nurse had it, but thank you for bringing it on the table.
Sure. Yeah. But tell me to pause at any moment, because sometimes like I do just get carried away. But
no, it's okay. So I want to ask you a very quick question here, speaking on mentor and coaching. Have you ever worked with mentor or coaching to move you from bed size to go out bed size, or in any stage in your journey?
Yes,
Have you ever
absolutely.
worked with that?
Yeah. So I will say, like, inside of the hospital, yes. And then the short version is then I find coaching, right? And I can talk more about this in detail if you want me to later, but finding nurse coaching. And in the program, learning about nurse coaching as a specialty, and, you work with people and you get coached. And then ever since, basically discovering this, doing the program, getting certified, I have always had a coach that I've worked with. It's been a few different people over the last 3 years, but yes, because I believe in the power of that, and really, like, helping people, but having that help myself to see, like, being able to get to a place that I want to go. Like, I want somebody to show me the way who's been there, somebody who really knows, somebody to challenge my thinking about, like, what I think is possible, which is exactly what we do in coaching for other people. And so I think we model that by
Yeah, I believe that, because came across some of business owner and coaches or mentors where they never hire someone or work with someone to help them to do that. There is no harm with that. But sometimes for more credibility, if I
yeah
not believe this in myself and I don't do that, how I will sell my services for my prospective client? So this is something where you sometimes, as we started to mention, but you're in the customer side or in the
yeah
end user
yeah
side. You don't believe in that and you don't invest in yourself. How you convince me to invest in myself? If you are not certified and you want to coach me, okay, by the way, certification doesn't mean you are a good coach, but at least you are not investing in that. You don't know the scientific behind it and
yeah
the good technique and approach to do that. How you expect me to come for you and invest in you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the note on certification, I think, I've seen this floating around the internet before as well. Like, some people are very pro certification, some people are like, you already have everything you need. But I will say that, like, even for me, being what I thought was a very good mentor preceptor, like, when you actually learn about coaching, it, like, when you learn the psychology, and all the pieces and parts, and you have language for this, and you learn how to really help somebody, tap into their potential, how to help them trust themselves. Like, those things take it so far beyond, it's essentially the difference between, like, an on-the-job training versus, having something be a professional certification. And so I think especially within nursing, like, there's a lot of awareness that still needs to be brought to nurse coaching as a specialty within nursing. And so I think that the certification and going through the training and, taking the board certification, like, it really elevates that. And I would love to see the nurse coaching specialty really be elevated as well.
Speaking also about the coaching, did you observe any specific pattern or gap in patient care that ultimately drove you to consider this toward your coaching?
Yeah. So, I think something that I think is super common, like, as I started to get into the program that I was in, a lot of the nurses that I began with, like, I think this is the case for many nurses. We think about our patients first and think, like, wow, if they had only had these lifestyle support with changing their lifestyle, which is, like, way harder than taking a medication, right? Like, but if they'd only had this, maybe they wouldn't be here, or maybe they wouldn't need this heart surgery, or maybe, XYZ. So I think that I had that thought, like many others. But there's definitely been a transition of where I started, because it wasn't necessarily my intention to be a health coach, but I had going through burnout. I really wanted to help nurses with that. And when I learned really, like, what does it mean to have a growth mindset, and how can you change your life by changing your thoughts? And, all of this was, like, pretty radical when you're just sort of stuck in autopilot in the hospital. And I was working with tons of people who felt stuck. So, like, realizing the power of our choices, and, like, when we create a new relationship with ourselves, what is possible from there. I think that there's two pieces of that. Realizing what really needs to happen for somebody to shift behavior. So I definitely had insights on the patient side, but because I was mostly working with patients who were asleep, the application was very personal. And I also saw how this could really revolutionize employee well-being and nurse well-being at different stages too.
Great. So how did your clinical practice shape your understanding for a human condition and you came with the holistic well-being approach.
Yeah. So, and I think my answer will also be a little different than a traditional answer from, I don't know. I keep referring to OR as not regular nursing, and feel free to chime in on that. But again, when I really started to apply this in practice was with the way that I was training and precepting and mentoring newer staff, and also the communication, the team communication that I with teams that I worked with in the operating room. I think that like having the insights and like going through a personal transformation and changing the way that I was thinking, and then realizing that there's so much better ways to communicate with people as a team. Those were some of the things that actually really made a huge impact on me while I was still in the hospital during my training, and then continuing to work in the hospital part-time afterwards. Like I felt like I really got to apply it in my setting, maybe not as much with patients, but definitely with the team.
I think this is we don't discuss, and this is not covered. When you work as a bedside nurse, either in the OR or in the surgical unit, all of those experience was in the US, or have you worked also in French?
No,
France,
just
sorry, in France.
just in the US. Yeah.
Just in the US. So you witness only one healthcare system, what is in the US?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
fun fact, I couldn't actually work as a nurse in France if I wanted to without redoing all my education. Like the language barrier is one thing, but they don't even recognize our degree. So yes, all my experience heretofore referred to is in the US.
Welcome to club. This is what happened with me when I came to Canada. So same apply everywhere. So it is not only your issue. So let's be real now. I want to go for the burnout, where you are very excited about it. But first of all, I would like to know your experience. And also I want to know, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but burnout is spreading across all the healthcare system. So how did you own your experience, which you will tell us, fuel you to decide to create a business and helping other fellow like yourself, just not to be surviving, and to coach them?
Yeah. So I think, something I want to say about burnout also that I think is just very important is it's so talked about. It is super widespread, but it is also very common for, I think, just as nurses, we're always thinking about somebody that has it worse than us. So, we've all seen an example that's maybe really extreme, like somebody can't come to work, they take an extended time off, but you can still be burned out and actually be pretty functional. So I think that there's like a whole spectrum and continuum of this. And part of the reason I'm bringing this out is because we deny in ourselves, maybe for a long time, that we actually are burned out, because we are so tempted to think, well, so-and-so has it worse, or I know this person that stop working, so I must not be burned out because I'm still here. But I think that if we consider the fact that, like with moral injury, stress injury, really ineffective coping mechanisms, just again, being in that, compassion fatigue, really being in survival mode, like just feeling really stuck, feeling like so out of alignment with your work. Like these are all pieces and parts of that. So burnout doesn't have to, to be this sort of diagnosis that means that you've had to completely stop. Like you can live with this for a very long time and you can deny it to yourself. And I think that a little bit of like, that's probably what I did for a while, just like dealing with mental and physical exhaustion, feeling super stuck, like there was no way out, and something that always reminded me, even before I found coaching, something that always reminded me that life could be different was when my sister and I would travel. And I was like, gosh, of all the people in the whole world, everybody is not working in the OR. So there must be other ways to, there must be other ways to live life. Right. But it's like, why, just, I couldn't figure out like, why do I feel so stuck here? And like I am pigeonholed and there, no way out, so to speak. So I think that happened. And then we decided to try travel nursing, like everybody does, right? You think, okay, this will be the thing. Long story short, we had one assignment. It was terrible. It was like an ethical nightmare. So we quit. And then we went on like a 6-month trip, which I guess we'll call it a sabbatical, because we just let everything go. We were like, okay, I don't know if we'll come back. Maybe we'll come back, but we're in a position to do this. So that's what we did. We ended up coming back to the OR after that, but we decided to work part-time. And there was something about leaving and coming back that it was like all of a sudden, and this was even before discovering coaching, but this was all of a sudden when we were coming back, we realized like, you know what, if this is going to be sustainable, we don't want it to be, 40 hours. Let's do 32. Like when we had some distance from, our previous work life, so to speak, it gave us so much perspective and also like a lot of confidence to say, let's ask for this, like let's ask for this and see if they say yes, and let's hope it works out. And it did. So all of that happened like before COVID and another kind of subsequent burnout there. And then we found nurse coaching after that. And so it was at that point that we were realizing like how much better we felt, even like with everything we were learning. We're like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better. Like, yes, I still have aspirations and dreams and want to do something different, but now all of a sudden work is like a lot more tolerable because of all of the things that I've learned about like how to emotionally regulate and having a bigger vision of what I want to do and changing my thinking and changing how I see myself. And so I think that it's important to speak to that because so often we think that a new job or changing specialties or starting a business or whatever, we think that the next thing is going to be the thing that fixes everything, but you take you with you everywhere you go. So if you don't address what caused you to get into the burnout in the first place, you can carry it with you into your next environment. And sometimes the environment is toxic, you need to leave, sure. But if you have all the same mindsets of like, people pleasing and everything has to be perfect and you never feel good enough and you can't say no to overtime, or you have no semblance of personal boundaries, you're going to carry that into another role and you're going to end up burned out again. And I think that without blaming, because I think it's really important to make this distinction within nursing and healthcare, like it's not your fault that you burn out. We have so many issues with our work environments, but I think we underestimate the power of what we can do to take our power back, take our lives back. And so often, I'm sure this will be another question that we'll get into in more detail, but I see this time and time again with people that I work with, that once we start to assess where they can take that power back, half the people that came to me wanting to find another job realize they're okay to stay where they are once they got their work-life balance and boundaries in order.
So I want to come back again for you and dig more deep with your experience and the burnout.
Yeah.
And I'm curious.
Of course, ask away.
So when you felt you are burned out, so what is the spark came for you to say, listen, this is the last day for me? Because you tried to do that, you went out with your twin and come back and works for some time in the OR. So after that, when you decided it's not it seemed you take it gradually, stages and phases, but when last day you decided that. And with this question, this is the way having your twin help you to take this decision together? And if not, so how you do it by yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so absolutely it helped us to do it together because I think so many of us in healthcare, like you may or may not have somebody super close to you that understands. Like it's very common to have a spouse that's not in healthcare, so they don't know the full depth of what you're going through. So actually, yes, like having somebody who fully understood what I was going through, it made it super, I don't say easy, but a lot easier, I think, than for other people, because we didn't doubt. Number one, we didn't doubt that what we were going through was really hard. We didn't gaslight ourselves into saying, no, it's fine, or anything like that. But yeah, how do you do it by yourself? I think that you get to a point where you need to, the discomfort of staying where you are versus you need to weigh the discomfort of staying where you are versus the discomfort of doing something new. And I think that, the idea of like reinventing yourself, or, we might say it in a less positive frame of starting over, because a lot of people are afraid to do something because they think they're starting over or they're starting from zero. So I think that, if you're thinking about this on your own, the first thing to ask yourself really is, yeah, what's more uncomfortable? Staying where you are and letting this just be how things are. And can you accept that, or do you want to accept that, or are you ready to go all in and do something about it, knowing that there's going to be discomfort on both sides?
I have another curious question before we move for the next topic, but
yeah,
I know you have nothing to do to have a twin with you. Both of you study nursing. Is this a scam because you are a twin and one of you like nursing, so the other are enforced here, or this is scam based of your parent, they encourage you to go for the nursing?
Yeah, great question. So, and because I'm sure this will come up again, but when we were in school together, actually they typically separate twins. And this was kind of good because it allowed us to like grow and develop on our own, which I think was really needed. But as we got older, we sort of came closer together.
Not anymore.
So, yeah, not anymore, but came apart. But so I kind of followed her into the operating room. And then once we were in the operating room was when we discovered, oh, I didn't know that a nurse could do this, because we had a nurse in our family and we had thought, that's not really for us, when we were growing up. But then it wasn't until we got into the OR and we're like, wait a minute, we didn't know that this was something else that nurses can do that looks so different than the traditional role. But I think, something that I wanted to touch on as well is that there are certain things that like before anything healthcare related, because I will say, I don't think our parents didn't really push us at all to go into healthcare. Like we didn't have, neither of them were in healthcare or anything like that, but we were just like, this will be great. We can get a job, but before that, I was considering being a teacher and she always wanted to do something creative. I always loved teaching. I loved writing. She loved like creating things. She thought she might go into being a graphic designer. So full circle to that is like these passions that you have, you will always find your way back to them, even if you temporarily do something, that isn't that. And I think that that's also important to show.
Absolutely. So now she is also coach like yourself.
Yeah.
So now you like teaching and instructing, and she is open-minded, more creativity. So blending two together from nursing background and twins, your customer and your client very lucky.
Thank you.
So and her name is Sarah, right?
Sarah. Yeah. And so the thing that's funny about this is with, this idea of creativity, and even like, in our business, it gave us a lot of room to like do this, right? Like I was doing all the writing at first and she was doing all of the graphic design for like our social media. And then we sort of both figured out how to do both, but it was so interesting to see how these parts of us came back and expressed themselves through our business. And then even now, like side note, she is going to be running in-person like workshops in Cleveland that are creativity based. So I think it's just a testament to the things that you love, like finding a way to do them, even if you take like a 15-year detour, you'll find your way back.
From Ontario, Canada, hat off for Sarah. And thank you for what you are doing and supporting Stacy. Okay, Stacy, let's work together right now and debunking the coaching myth. There's a lot of myth about the coaching. So one of the things I believe you hear a lot about it, coaching, it's luxury, it's not mandatory, and I don't need it. So if I have additional money and I want to look like someone cool, okay, I will go for the coach. What do you think about this?
Yeah. I think that this is something that comes up a lot because people are afraid to make investments in themselves. And what you realize is that time and money are actually pretty surface level excuses. A lot of people think, oh yeah, I'll spend the money on something else, or, I don't have the time, this or that. But what's really deeper underneath, when people say that, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, the same behavior and thought patterns that lead you to not want to invest in yourself in a financial sense typically also mean you have trouble investing time in yourself. Oh, which I said time. But like, you might also have really poor boundaries. You might not be able to take time for yourself to focus on your own well-being or manage your stress at home. It might mean that you're always taking care of other people, which is so typical of nurses. You're always bending over backwards to help somebody else. And so what people don't realize is that like those mindsets don't occur in isolation. So you can, of course, you can always find something else to spend time and money on, but changing the way that you see yourself, changing your relationship with yourself, if you think you're worthy of spending time or money on, like those are all deeper questions. And it also really depends on your goals. Well, I mean, I think that there's, some people can read a book and they can implement it. They can learn about something to do for their lifestyle or change their diet or start exercising, and they can implement it and they can stick to it and they can be consistent. But that's not really the case for most people, because if that were the case, then everybody would have everything they want. Everybody would have their dream body. Everybody would have their dream job, but the things that hold
Especially
us
right now with a lot of the tool with the AI, you can do that by yourself. You don't need to invest money. There's a lot of free resource. And this is something where I want to discuss with you. So I can understand sometimes you don't have money. That's okay. I live in West. I know how it's expensive, how it's the inflation. But is this an excuse for me if I don't have money to know how I can utilize other resource to be coached by someone, regardless what that mastermind? Maybe AI one of those tools.
Yeah. And I think that there is a sense of, like sometimes you think you don't have money, but it might just be money you didn't want to spend on that. Some people, okay, genuinely, if you don't, that's okay. There are lots of tools and resources out there that you can get started. And then sometimes all it takes is seeing some kind of result to convince you, okay, you know what? Now I realize that if I really change this, that I could actually totally change my life, or maybe the way that I'm spending my money is also related to unhealthy coping mechanisms like, buying pointless shopping,
eating,
retail therapy, lots of drinking, all the things that we use to like run away from our lives if the intention behind the spending, so it's like
first
can go
aid
so
only
much
is not
deeper.
solving the root of the issue.
Yeah. So I think that it's very easy if we just say, oh, okay, but not in a way to be like pushy or forceful, but to allow people to really think about like, well, this is a whole different conversation we could have, but like, what's your relationship with money? And because, there are so many things that can be done creatively. And again, if you clean up your coping mechanisms, I think you're going to find the average person is going to discover money they didn't realize they had if they are more intentional about that spending.
Yeah, I too agree with you. I don't want to be very subjective, but if you cannot manage your financial resource, and you cannot find a way how to do that over the years. So this is what give me a question: how you will plan for your future? And I am advocate for all technology and AI. And right now, I bring one of the resources you can use it AI, but AI will not give you a genuine feeling as a human to work with someone, face it, and do it by themselves. Yeah, you can find that like the book. You can read it, but it's not customized for you. Working with someone came from the same experience or have that understanding will help you to tailor it for you and to see this is something, it's not theory, it is a practical.
Yeah. And, there's a quote that I really like that's, you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. So, something that I think that is really important for people to realize, it's like everybody has blind spots, like that's why we have coaches ourselves, even though we're coaches. Like the work isn't ever truly done, so to speak, which you can look at that in a number of different ways, but it's like you're always going to have blind spots that somebody else can see that you can't. And also I think it's just on the topic of limiting beliefs, like I think that this term is so well used and mainstream that people really think that, okay, I'll just identify my limiting beliefs. But, like those can be blind spots too, because what a lot of people don't realize about limiting beliefs is they don't have just like a red flag attached to them. Like, here I am. No, the things that people believe that limit them, they are things that they hold to be true. They're things that they think that they can't change. They're things that they think are just the way I am or just the way it is. And so, like if you are doing this work on your own or attempting to, there's going to be a level of depth you can get to by yourself, but then there's going to be another level of depth where, in your mind that those are your beliefs, you won't have the distance to recognize them or to step back and challenge them. So that's where having somebody else to do that with you makes all the difference in the world.
So Stacy, I'm your 1 second, please. Sorry for that. Sorry.
It's okay. Life happens, right?
Yeah. So yeah, where I stopped. Okay.
Limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Stacy, now see me as your prospective customer or client, and we are having that kind of chat. So I have worked with the coach in the past and spent some time, but that coach doesn't solve my problem. Still, my problem is exists. So why I came and invest with you? Because my problem is and my coach didn't solve my issue.
Right. Okay. I think this is a great question. And so something that I think is really important in this is, first of all, like I would ask, like what was your issue and what was your expectation of coaching? Because I think that there's something about outsourcing our power and taking responsibility for our own actions. So on the one hand, we can talk about how great it is to have somebody help you dig deep and challenge you. But when we're talking about the work that we're doing, there's work that happens inside the session and there's work that happens outside the session. If I were investigating this, I would really want to know, like, what kind of action did you take outside the session? Like, obviously this is all going to be dependent on the goals of like our theoretical, customer who's had maybe not a good experience, but like, was their perception that the coach is going to do the work for them, or did they show up fully? Did they do the work, the inner work, both inside the sessions and outside the sessions? I think that that would be a great place to start with asking, because ultimately, no matter what, nobody can do the things for you that you want. Thinking about success of coaching and how we're measuring that and what's the outcome. But we really have to take a step back and say, like, well, what was the goal in the first place, and what was being done, and what was the expectation?
Yeah, thank you for that. And if you allow me, I want to put some details here, especially because this is common here. And the main purpose from this to give awareness, not more than promotion and sales, but it's more to let everyone know. If you go for the doctor and tell the doctor you have sign and symptoms, and he diagnoses you and give you a medicine, and this medicine, when you come back to home, you didn't take it.
Yeah.
Still, you
I love this analogy.
have the same problem. So you need to do your homework or your job in order to overcome this challenge what you have. The same apply like this. When you go for the gym, if you hire someone as a personal coach for you, and you are not working with the all instrument there, how you will build muscles. The coach will not help you to build the muscle. But when I start to believe there is misuse and overuse also, by the way, in the coaching. So sometimes I don't need coach. I need maybe mentor, someone to help me to how to move from A to B. Maybe I am crystal clear about my objective, and I know what I want, but I don't know the technique how to do with that.
Sure.
This is where it happened. So if someone need to hire someone or invest, you need to know, is my goals clear? What I want? It is a smart objective. I know how and when I need to achieve them, but I don't know the tool. This is something else. But to come for the coach, most of the technique, whatever the school they follow, they will help them to find their own internal soul, internal identity, to discover themselves. And that will take me for another question for you. So because you have more focus on well-being and holistic view of wellness, so why I came to coach to help me to do that wellness? I can go for yoga or can watch on TV and do meditation. So what is the value from this?
Okay, so this is a great question, and I also am going to touch a little bit on what you were talking about before as I answer this, because I think it's so important to clarify this. And I can't believe we haven't come to this part of our discussion yet, but everybody is calling themselves a coach nowadays. I feel like you probably noticed that, and that's probably where this came from. So there are really big differences between coaching and mentorship, and you might work with somebody who is both a coach and a mentor. That can exist, but there's a lot of people who are really they're in a role of a mentor or a teacher or a consultant, even depending on if it's some really specific, advice, that if they offer a one-to-one service, they might be like, and I do coaching, but it's like, you're not just coaching because you're working with somebody one-to-one. Like, these are different things. So yeah, like, what is the value? And why, how is coaching different than teaching somebody or mentoring them? And, we talked a little bit about our training and where that comes from, but I think also how you ended that part of your sentence, talking about the difference between giving somebody really detailed information or advice or a plan or a roadmap.
We've covered some incredible ground today, but our conversation is far from over. In our next episode, we'll dive deeper and explore even more fascinating insights. Stay tuned for part 2 of our conversation on uncharted narratives. If this episode sparked something in you, here's how you can keep our mission alive. Subscribe to Uncharted Narratives S03E04-Navigating. Leave us a 5-star review. It helps more amazing people discover our stories. Share an episode that moved you with a colleague or friend. Connect with me on LinkedIn and join our healthcare innovation community. Together, we're not just telling stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare. See you in the next episode of Uncharted Narratives S03E04-Navigating.